that we should have, look into different ways to protect our residents and our animals and our children. So I agree with Jim that maybe as a township we could work with the Allegan County Road Commission and maybe come up with some ideas to alter these practices. So I don't know how I don't know how you all feel about it, but I feel strongly about it myself. So.
I'm just curious, do we know even, or do we need more information in terms of the, what authority or impact do we have to say to the road commission on any issue, but in this one in particular, if we were to say, we don't want you using that in our township, can we do that?
Griffin reached out to Craig Atwood today, and he wasn't able to come to the meeting, correct? But did you feel that he was open to maybe coming talking to us at another time, and maybe we could work together with him to find maybe some solutions? Or I don't know if we want to form maybe a committee at some point, or I don't know what procedure is for something like this. What do you think, Griffin? I mean, any ideas?
I spoke with Craig Atwood, who's the managing director of the Roads Commission, several times over the last couple days. One, to try to collect information for all of you, but also in terms of what our options could be, and he seemed very open to having a discussion about this in terms of being receptive to feedback. If it is in terms of creating a letter, if it is a resolution that would be sent to the Roads Commission, that would be put in front of the road commissioners. There are also the options to invite him at a future meeting. Unfortunately, he was not able to attend tonight. We could look at scheduling him for a future meeting if the board thinks that would be productive, if there is a conversation that you all want to have there. Forming a committee to have conversations with residents and solicit more resident feedback in terms of options is always an option. There's a lot of different ways the township board could decide to move in this situation. I think it's helpful if you all had an opportunity to review the materials that were sent to you today. We did receive, as I believe Mr. Brandis did, the safety fact sheets that were sent from the Road Commission in terms of the specific chemicals being used, but in terms of looking at a larger picture of the direction the township board wants to move on this, you all have a lot of options.
Yeah, we did get a ton of documentation that there was no way we could really read through or synthesize the 28-page report to understand the toxicity or lack thereof. So I know for me, I really have to study these to understand all of them. But I personally think it would be nice to hear Craig and have him talk about the potential dangers, the health, all the data that they have, as well as a committee of residents. I mean, we've done that before on different road issues. So those are just that's my 2 cents.
The documentation was
overwhelming.
Overwhelming, scary. I mean, reading it, it's like, you have to wear a hazmat suit to apply this stuff, and there's no
This isn't new information.
Right.
It's kind of out there.
Yes. And,
global level.
And I feel that maybe we haven't caught up to, I don't know, there's litigation against this company. I don't understand why.
It's not a secret.
Yeah, still being used. So I really want to look into this. This is really a big one for me. So.
When's the next road commission meeting? Do we know?
I think. Do you know?
Okay.
Do they meet monthly or?
I don't think
No.
No.
All right.
No, he hasn't called me for one,
All right.
so, which he usually does. So.
In my somewhat limited dealings with the Road Commission, they've all been very positive, and I think that they professionals, they're responsive.
They are, yeah.
They, are really kind in the way that they educate, their, partners. And I would like to give them kind of first crack at this,
Yeah. I
This
agree.
might have been kind of like, okay, what do we do? Yeah, people are upset, they might have a right to be upset, who knows what they're saying? But in my dealings with them, they have responded very favorably, they've taken things into account, they've heard concerns. So I would like to give them some time to respond in the way that they think, could be agreeable to all parties, before we step in and advocate. I think if we need to advocate and say, hey, these are our constituents, they're upset, we think they have a right to leave, I think that would be the time that we intervene, rather than at this point, give them some time to get their ducks in a row and say, here's our options, or here's how we think we can, mitigate these concerns or eliminate them.
Yeah, I will say that Craig in particular has been one of the most responsive people to work with. I mean, I've just been overwhelmed by his generosity with his time. And so, yeah, I think I agree with that.
I mean, I agree on everything you say about Craig.
Yeah.
And I've sent people to him, and he responds, and he does things. That's terrific. I guess I just would like us to consider maybe doing something a little more pointed, where we actually say we would like you to come back to us
Absolutely.
Yes.
with some alternatives, because
Okay.
it's the feeling of this body that Roundup should not be used in our township. We know that.
Well,
I hate
one
to
thing
see
I
us do a
saw
committee and wait another
in
6
social
months.
media,
I mean, what,
sorry.
I mean, make it open-ended, but say, we're requesting you to do some research and get back to us. We don't like having Roundup sprayed indiscriminately without notice, as James pointed out. That's, it's a carcinogen.
Right.
And on a bigger environmental platform, it's why we don't have monarch butterflies as much as we used to. These are not opinions. These are facts. And I don't want to rile, I mean, I agree about how we do it, but I'm just saying, it'd be nice if we could be a little more pointed in what our goal is or what we would like them to consider, rather than them saying, well, we'll get back to you in 6 months and we'll compare
that's
to
not
other
what I
things.
was thinking.
No, I didn't say you were.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if we could be a little more directed.
I do agree. I don't like it when my neighbors use True Green, but at least they notify us.
They do, they put a thing on your door, don't walk on the lawn for 4 hours.
So,
And I think there is a period where this is toxic and then it settles down. But, I did see something on social media about that originated, they thought from spraying for mosquitoes when it was that, I don't know, something a long time ago was mosquito, now we're having that mosquito.
yeah.
And I wonder if they're gonna move more with this over that, so that might, I don't know, be something, maybe Conklin actually put something out, and she wanted to come tonight, but couldn't make it, but she's pretty knowledgeable in this type of thing, so maybe we should talk to her at some point about how she, what she knows. So, I think we just, I don't know, what do you wanna do, form a committee, or are we ready to tell Allegan that we don't want this, or is that jumping the gun a little bit?
I think
I'm ready.
I think it's more a question of whether or not we give them the opportunity to work with the citizens and see if they can't come up with something on their own without direction from us. And if we give them till October 2, see if they can give some options. The letter did go to the Township Road Commission, or to County Road Commission. So they should have it on their radar and be given an opportunity to respond.
Which letter, I'm sorry, are you referring to?
There was one nugget of information I didn't give you. I did get a response, and he hasn't put it in writing yet, but what he said to my attorney is that a homeowner can keep vegetation from 4 feet above, 1 foot back, and 1 foot below, and they won't spray. So that is a verbal, and he has not yet put that in writing. So basically what he's saying, the citizens can maintain the guardrails near their residences, and they won't spray Roundup. and that's an important piece of information I should have given you.
I would, when you see these deck crews out, I wonder if that might be an option, that the deck crew could take care of this without chemicals, maybe,
What if we were, as a board, to write a letter to the road commission, just expressing our concern and interest that this is becoming more of an issue with our residents? We share some of the questions, concerns relative to Roundup, but, let them know that we need some feedback. Come back to us with some options. Doesn't have to be a resolution, just a letter.
Okay.
But that's my suggestion, that we draft this letter to get the ball moving.
Could Donna say something?
Well, I'm not finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Public comment time,
Okay.
All right. Not up for me to call on time.
Well, I don't know if you're allowing that, Cindy, or not.
It's up to Cindy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, because it's not quite public comment time, but this
Right.
was inserted into the
Okay.
thing. Should I come up there, because I do have some things to say about this.
Yes, please,
Okay.
and state your name and
Sure.
address.
I'm Santa Leonard, 2924 Lakeshore Drive, Douglas, Michigan. Oh, we're in the township. Okay, Roundup, just today, a friend of mine who wished me not to say her name, but she has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and she is in a class action lawsuit in New York for it. There are thousands of lawsuits against it, and today it was announced in the news that a $2.025 billion lawsuit has been settled, and they are now looking for all the people. That's a big, huge, gigunda lawsuit for this stuff. A man out in California got a $29 million settlement for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma already. The lawsuits are piling up, thousands of them. This stuff is bad. Since we're discussing what we should do as a township, and as a group, the board, I saw on TV where they had a Monsanto executive being interviewed. And the interviewer, I forget which, because it was like 2 years ago. I mean, this has been around a while, like you say, John. And he said to the Monsanto executive, so you feel that Roundup is absolutely safe and would not cause cancer, any illness in any human or animal or whatever? And the man said, absolutely, it is completely safe. And the interviewer said, this was national TV, I have a glass of glyphosate right here, will you drink it? The Monsanto executive got up and said, do you think I won't use the F word, crazy? And he got up and walked off the stage. Now, what does that tell you when a Monsanto executive will not drink a glass of it, and using that word, on national TV, after having said it's completely safe? That's scary. His husband has cancer, my friend has cancer, and there's been multi-billion-dollar lawsuits in the news today settled. Now they're finding the people to collect the cash. To me, it creates huge liability for the county, for the township, for the city. I think liability of this kind of lawsuit is a huge reason to find something else to fill the books for the weeds. That would be one thing, and the other thing would be public input with specific technological knowledge, meaning hearing, people maybe didn't hear today about this multi-billion, you know what I'm saying? If there were maybe a public hearing and the public went to the road commission, at a hearing, with a hearing, rather than burden be on the board, just sort of maybe have the public in on it, so that it isn't just, well, the board doesn't think, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know if that's input's helpful or not, but it's bad.
It is bad.
When something like that's been settled for that much money, and people we know have cancer. For it to be sprayed where our pets are gonna walk, where we're gonna walk, where we're gonna maybe eat what we grew, cutting back 2 feet in the sky and all that, this stuff's bad. So thank you for letting me insert into the conversation. That's why I came today.
Madam Supervisor, can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
I would just like to clarify that the road commission, and we can figure out when their next meeting would be, but road commission meetings are public as well. And they do have public comment periods, and if the route that the township board decides is to ask residents or encourage residents or educate residents about the times and the dates and the opportunities to go to these meetings and make comments, that is an option as well, as was mentioned. I mean, these meetings are like our township board meetings and like our other appointed board and commission meetings. I mean, they're meetings held in the public. There are public comment opportunities.
Right. One thing I would kind of recommend though is that if, I don't know what the schedule is to apply this chemical, but I think maybe if we could request to opt out right now, from any further testing till we've decided, is that anything that could happen, or is that asking too much?
I don't think that the township can ask to opt out. County roads are controlled by the County Road Commission, and that's where these discussions should be taking place. It's not just Saugatuck Township that's impacted, it's all the townships in the county. And I just think this is probably the wrong place for this discussion. I don't know, Griffin, if you could talk about the relationship between the township and the county?
I mean,
We're not their boss.
Correct. So
We do fund them.
we do send them funding for our road projects, and we are a government entity, and, you know, through my conversations with Craig Atwood, their managing director, I mean, they take our feedback very seriously, and in the conversations I had with him, you know, if we have feedback for them, either verbal or going to a more formal route via a letter or resolution, I have no doubt that they would consider the feedback, but recognizing, just like all of you as elected officials, that you have 3,500 constituents, they have a number of different constituents that they have to take that feedback and those concerns into account. That's not minimizing this, and I think they would be very open to hearing it, but I agree, they have a wider area that they need to consider. I think there are a lot of different options, as I said before, that the board can decide to move, if that is directing staff to invite the road commission or representative to come to the next meeting, if that's taking a more pointed stance, as our treasurer mentioned, in terms of giving an opinion on the issue, or if that's making encouragements to go to the road commission meeting to have the discussion. That's the township's board's decision on how they want to move forward. They also have the option to table the topic, and we can come up with more information and more options. There are a lot of different routes we could go on this one, and that's up to you all.
Can we, through our representative on the road commission, our board representative, request agenda items for their meetings? Do that?
I'll tell you in a second, I'm on their site.
Brenda's our road commission rep.
And I'm asking because I would like to see this move forward to, you know, to be on their agenda. And not just say, Craig, come talk to us. We've all talked to Craig. We know Craig. We all like Craig, and he's very, very responsive. And, but I think to just say, come talk to us versus come give us some options to not use Roundup, or let's go to them. And,
Right.
Those are all options.
again, I keep saying this, but I think I'd like us to be as directed in our response as we can be, that we're all comfortable being.
If I read this correctly, it does look like there's a meeting at 9 a.m. on the 18th, but it also says telephone inquiries regarding meetings may also be made, and it tells you about what hours. So it says that minutes from prior meetings can be viewed 1 hour before, so that would be 8 a.m. It doesn't say anything about agendas, so, that I can
I mean,
find.
that's an option the township board could take, is to make a formal recommendation that this item be added to their agenda, but very similarly to our agenda, it would be a recommendation.
Right. And that could be part of the letter.
It could.
Softer than a resolution, which we might get to over time.
This all come up very quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only been able to digest it
Right.
for a
I
few
know.
days.
Well, I noticed the the state park has flags when they spray, you know, I mean, right there, that's one little, I mean, but personally, I'd rather see it gone. I mean, I just, you know, it's a new world here, we don't need this.
Well, and we're all Allen County residents.
Yes,
And we can go.
and I will go with Stacy Aldridge resident instead of township board person, so I'm all about it, so I will be there.
So that is also an option, if I can, is we can table the topic or the board can request that staff collect more information from the staff route, and board members and other members of the public can be encouraged to go to their next meeting. That's another option the township board can consider.
Well, I'd like to request that staff draft a letter from the township board to the road commission, expressing our increased concern and feedback from our residents and constituents, with a hope that the commission itself would entertain this issue as an agenda item as soon as they can. It may be too soon to say September 18th. And then we could all have feedback on that letter, but I think I would like to see the letter from the full board.
I would
Maybe.
Yeah,
Good idea.
great idea.
So if I can, staff can draft a letter and bring it back before the township
Oh, yes.
board.
Oh, yeah. No, I would, yeah.
And so if that is a motion that the board wants to make, the board has the option that they can move to direct staff to draft a letter
Yes.
on these topics to bring back for feedback at the October 2nd.
No.
No, I think
No,
we
no,
want
no,
to
no,
do it
no,
before
no,
then.
no. I would like to see a draft letter that we can send to the road commission prior to their
Right.
meeting in September. I'm not asking for a
The
thesis.
18th. Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you asking staff to do that, or are you asking staff to bring it to you all for feedback?
Yes. I asked you to draft it for our feedback.
But before our meeting though, correct?
It'll be,
Before they-
like,
But
like
before
within
their
a
meeting.
week.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
to get to
I mean,
them.
You know,
We
can
have
he
to have
just
another
send,
special meeting.
Why?
Why?
For a letter?
You can't.
can he
approve
just,
it, taking
Seriously?
formal action.
I don't
on
know.
behalf of-
feedback from all of
In an open.
Oh, I see
So
what you're
according to
saying.
Open Meetings Act, for you all to deliberate on the content of a meeting.
Oh, I think we could choose. which
So, I
to-
just-
Yes, I see.
We
what
can't
you're
give
saying.
you our individual feedback on a letter? Does that have to have a,
If it's a deliberation, it has to be at a public meeting.
Right.
I'm not talking about deliberating.
take that action.
Talking about
Yeah.
editing and commenting, okay.
Yeah, but that's.
All right.
Because for everyone to give a thumbs up, or it
Right,
All right.
would be an informal vote. Now, I don't know who made it, I mean, you can assign 2 board members the authority to give staff the thumbs up on that. That's not
Right.
a majority of the board, but again,
Well,
it's
Yeah.
deciding if you want to create a committee to do that or
I
not.
don't think we need to create a committee.
no, but let's do that to 2 board members.
Yeah, it could be John and I, or
That
John
could
and
be any-
Stacy, either one. I'm open to whatever, so it doesn't have to be me. But it can be.
Right.
But I
No, I
want
don't-
John involved, yeah.
How about Brenda and Abby? I mean, sorry, Brenda, Abby, Brenda and Stacy.
yes, I'm all about it.
All right, that sounds fine.
Yeah.
So do we need to make a formal motion?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll move that we direct staff to, draft a letter that trustee Aldrich and I review to send out before the September 18th meeting of the road commission
Regarding.
regarding the aqueous Roundup, correct?
Or use
Regarding what the township's concern over the
The
aqueous
township's
Roundup.
concern over,
Continued use.
for herbicides, how's that?
I will second that motion.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay,
It's, well, one thing do you feel that we should actually find out if they're done, I wonder if they're done spraying for the year, actually, and we could take a little more time and not, you know, I wonder if that
It's only September.
question, you think they're still spraying? Yeah.
So we planning for next year.
Well, I'm thinking, instead of us all like rushing to this, we could take our time and,
They just did huge bushwhacking and clearing of Wiley Road and Lakeshore Drive.
so they're working on it still. Okay, maybe, yeah.
That is part of the problem, is we don't know.
Right.
Well, that could be incorporated in the letter perhaps, a
Right.
request for
Yeah.
alert, some sort of alert mechanism.
Thank you.
Possible.
I don't know if we have, oh, I'm sorry, we're still in discussion, right? I'll wait then.
okay, so the motion is to direct staff to draft a letter which will be reviewed by, Marcy and Aldrich, and mailed out as soon as possible to be on the agenda for the, or at least on their radar for the September 18th
Yeah, the
meeting.
radar.
Regarding the application of Roundup in the township along the guardrails.
Anywhere.
Is it just
Right.
around guardrails?
It is, I would
That's
use,
where they
because
do
they
it.
usually mow on the
Only?
other areas.
Yep, only around
They
the
can't
guardrails.
mow a
That's
guardrail.
No.
Yeah.
Dog park.
Oh, I heard that, yeah, that they spray it around the dog park.
Well, then, why don't we not say guardrails, just say use in the town,
Yeah.
use in the town.
So, do we need to remake the motion?
I don't think it's our dog park, I think it's, they said that.
Motion and support, right?
And discussion? Yep. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
I don't know if this requires, action or not, formal action, but I do like the idea of, making it available on our website, on our social media, just posting those times of the road commission without really influencing people, but this has been an issue that has been raised by some constituents. If you want, you know, to have your voice heard in the proper channel, the first, you know, that it is available, that we would post the time and date of the road commission meeting.
Or maybe
And-
Or the emails or whatever.
Well, and another thing that might be included in that is that we have been given permission by Craig Atwood, I saw the letter, that we can, a homeowner can take care of their own guardrail and, you know, keep it clear, so maybe
Not
they
everybody has a guardrail.
right.
We can just go right into the lake and die. With an icy out.
But if they don't want that near their home, they could take care of it themselves, so.
Does that sound reasonable to everyone, that we would put that information out there for residents?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that's a good idea.
Do we need formal action then on that?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Are you referring specifically to the meeting on September 18th?
I think that's important to get that information out there, but also just general contact information. If you have concern, you know, it's come to our attention that there are some concerns about this would, you know, that we could direct them directly to the road commission, have their, you know, a link to their website or phone numbers or whatever, and here's their next meeting if you'd like to be personally heard.
I suspect there may be a story in the newspaper September 12th.
That'll get the word out there.
Yeah, we can.
A way to do it, not the
Right,
only way.
right.
All right, thanks.
It's all over there.
And I'd even suggest when and this is done and approved and finalized and signed, that this letter get posted as well.
And we voted.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So then we'll move on to our next item of new business, and that is the Construction Board of Appeals appointment. This is a little bit different. The appointments are made by the supervisor and then supported by board action.
Okay.
So we have 3 openings on our Construction Board of Appeals, and we have 3 applications. And, I know 2 of them through business contacts. I don't know the other one, but I have no reason to believe that he would not be a good fit based on his application. So I would like to appoint Charles Carlson, Robert Furman, and Jason Diedick to the Saugatuck Township Construction Board of Appeals, each for a term of 2 years expiring on June 30, 2021. Any questions?
Support that?
Is that a motion or do
Do I
you
have
need
to make a motion?
Right, to approve your
Okay,
appointee?
recommendation?
Yes.
I move to support the supervisor's recommendation regarding the Construction Board of Appeals appointment.
I will second that.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next, under new business, we have the medical marijuana ordinance amendment. And this is a clarifying amendment. It is not a whether or not we're going to allow medical marijuana, but it just clarifies the location where they can be in respect to one another, their distance apart, and a little bit of a renumbering of the ordinance. So, the Planning Commission had a public hearing, and they voted unanimously to recommend the amendment to the Township Board at their July 22 meeting. Their question?
The only thing, if I can add, is this is ordinance number 9,
Not number 9, okay.
2019-09.
I didn't have the number.
And nothing in this clarification affects any of the already approved sites.
That's right, because they would be grandfathered.
Well, I'll move that the board approve ordinance 2019-09, which is an ordinance to renumber zoning section 40-746A of the Code of Ordinances, Township of Saugatuck, Michigan, to 40-747, and to amend that section to clarify the buffering requirement between marijuana facilities and residential dwellings.
I'll second that.
Okay, since this is an ordinance amendment, we will do a voice vote. Aldrich?
Yes.
Bickford?
Yes?
Talmert?
Yes.
Marcy?
Yes.
Osmond? Yes. Motion carries. Moving on, cemetery services agreement with the city of the village of Douglas. Griffin, do you want to talk for a minute about that? It's pretty straightforward.
Sure. Staff's been working to get renewals approved with the 2 cities. The city of Saugatuck and the city of the village of Douglas have long-standing relationships with Saugatuck Township when it comes to providing financial support to the maintaining of the 2 township cemeteries. In exchange for that, residents of the Saugatuck and Douglas pay the same rates as township residents. Both of those agreements have expired. This is the approved renewal for the city of the village of Douglas. In terms of the 3 attachments, it's the originally proposed renewal. It's the renewal that was approved by the city of the village of Douglas. If I can draw your attention, one clause was added that caps their contribution in the case if one of the 3 parties does not rejoin the agreement. The cap is consistent with the formula included in the agreement, and what that is based on is your contribution is based on your population as of the last census. The only last thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the city manager for Douglas and I have updated those caps so you'll see in the last copy is the agreement I'm looking for you all to, approve if you all agree. And what we will do is bring this agreement back to the city of the Village of Douglas to sign and approve with those updated caps.
Any questions for Griffin? John?
Dare I ask this question? Is there any update or indication? I mean, we're all aware that the cemetery agreement with the city of Saugatuck expired before the Douglas one, and the city still owes us their compensation for last fiscal year. I'm just curious where we think that might be.
Sure, there's no official update on the status of the agreement with the city of Saugatuck. I've reached out to the Saugatuck manager, and within the last week, we've had email communication, that looks favorably upon moving it forward and having the discussion to get that renewal, taken care of. Staff has received no formal concerns that would make us think we wouldn't be able to negotiate.
And I think you already covered this, but if for some reason the city did not reach agreement with the township, city of Saugatuck, that would have no effect at all on the contractual relationship with Douglas.
Correct. Those are separate agreements, so
Right.
if you see attached, there are two separate agreements between us and the independent cities. The only other thing I would say is the three managers, so myself and then the manager of Douglas and the manager of Saugatuck, we've had brief discussions about potentially reworking this agreement in its entirety. What we're looking at is if we can get this iteration approved, that would give us 3 years of that contractual relationship to revisit it in terms of updates that may be more desirable for all three parties.
And, sorry, relative to Saugatuck, because we're not operating with a contract, has that had any effect on what residents of the city pay for cemetery services? Are they paying more now until this is cemetery?
So we are currently do not have a contract with the city of Saugatuck, so if they have a resident who comes to us looking to buy a burial plot, they pay non-residential rates.
And I assume, are they told that? Do we know?
Are they told that?
Boy, if
when
the
they
agreement was
ask
signed,
us-
you wouldn't be paying this much.
Yes,
Okay.
and, I mean, that is one individual, that's happened with one individual,
But it's
there's
part of what the sexton would do, just to say, this is the current rate until.
Yes, so, Lori Babinski, who's our cemetery sexton, she, when asked about the rates, part of it depends on where you live. If you're a resident or in the city of the Village of Douglas, you get the resident rate.
Right.
And if you're not, you pay a different rate. And it is a substantially different rate.
It's like 2,000 versus 200, you thought, something like that?
No, I know the person in question, but they didn't seem to mind, but it just seemed, I just wanna make sure we're getting that message to the residents, and if they don't like it, they might mention it to their elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions I can answer?
Okay. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll move to authorize the township supervisor and township clerk to sign the cemetery services agreement approved by the Douglas City Council on August 5, 2019, as updated by the township manager.
I'll second that.
Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next up on our list is a speed study resolution. This is not a complicated issue either. There's not a speed study in effect for a portion of 62nd Street and 131st. So the sheriff cannot effectively enforce the speed limit, which is currently posted at 25 miles an hour. And came to me saying she gets quite a few complaints about speeding in that location, and if we wouldn't consider doing a speed study, because when she writes a ticket, it means nothing, and they don't have to pay it. One of the consequences of a speed study is, though, it might be a different speed than 25. Could be 35 or 45, which is probably not what the residents want to see, but it's just the way the state law is written, that it has to be the 85th percentile.
So, the limit now
At least it's enforceable.
is 25?
It's posted at 25.
They think that's unenforceable.
That's
And
totally
excuse
unenforceable.
me, I should know this, but I have trouble with my avenues. So I know 62nd Street, but 131st Avenue south of Old Allegan Road, can you help me with that, or? Is this the 62nd that goes past Bayou Trail and
It's
onto?
the same one that got the chip seal.
Yeah, this is the exact same.
Okay,
So it's.
I don't know which
speed
131 is.
It's when
You know,
it turns-
25 seems kind of low.
Yeah, I think that seems.
Because it's 45 right
It's
here up
45,
by
you're
my
right.
house, you
Yeah,
know?
it's when it
I don't know if that matters, but I agree, it should not be 25.
Right, I think.
Right now, the only way she can enforce a speed is if it's more than 55, if somebody's going more than 55.
Oh.
So 35 or 45 would be better than what it currently is. And this comes at no financial obligation for the township, correct?
That's my understanding.
So do we know, is this like when they just put up one of those you're driving this fast things, or is there more to it? Do you know the details?
I don't
What
have
a
the
speed
details
study
at this
looks
time.
like.
What I understand right now is, this is the first step in the process to initiate that study. The road commission needs a resolution from us essentially requesting it, which is what is put in front of you, and then they work with the Michigan State Police to implement that study.
I feel it's okay, you know, actually it seems kind of low. I would move to adopt a resolution to request the Allegan County Road Commission to initiate a speed study of 62nd Street and 131st Avenue south of Old Allegan Road.
I'll second.
Okay, and because it's a resolution, once again, we'll do a roll call vote. Bigford,
Yes?
Helmrich,
Yes.
Marcy,
Yes.
Osmond, yes, Aldrich,
Yes.
motion carries. Moving on to our next agenda item is, agreement update with Unicode for their services, codification, and website maintenance of our ordinance. I don't know if you use the website ordinances lookup. A lot of people do. I think Griffin will tell us there's been more than 4,000 hits.
Yeah, for the first 6 months of 2019, there were 4,662 page views.
Is this the, I'm sorry, is this the ordinance link on our website, or?
Yes.
Yeah, I use,
It's the Muni code.
yeah, okay, so they make that happen.
Their original agreement is the only agreement that exists, and I believe, from reading the paperwork, that it was part of the original codification. It wasn't even an update, it was the original agreement, and it's dated in the year 2000. Over the years, I think in 2017, Brad received a letter from Unicode requesting additional fees because of the services they provide are more costly. They invest in technology, and having an agreement from 2000 is pretty sad. So, Griffin went ahead and figured out what ordinances hadn't been updated with the help of Lene, and prepared a list of those, and is ready to recommend, I believe, the adoption of the enclosed agreement. Is that where we are?
Yeah, if I can real quick.
Yes, please.
Just to clarify, updating this agreement is not required, and that's why I try to phrase it as more a refresh of this agreement, but staff recommends that the township board adopt an updated agreement just in terms of operating relationship with them. It outlined that price increase. Overall, this is a relatively low-cost agreement. We pay $550 a year to host the code on the website, in addition of $250 a year for service charges. There is an additional cost as outlined when it comes to updating our physical code of ordinance books, but that only occurs once a year, and that's the other big part of this besides updating the professional service contract as part of staff's effort to do housekeeping. What we learned is that our code of ordinances, both online and the physical books, hadn't been updated since January 2018. So I want to give a lot of credit to our zoning administrator, Lene Wells, because she was able to find all the changes that need to be incorporated, and if approved by the board, we will move to have those changes, and the most recent medical marijuana ordinance update incorporated in the next supplement.
I'd like to add to that point, it's all related, and again, thank Lene Wells for all the work, because our zoning app that we use all the time, and people use it online, and we use it in the office, and we answer questions to the best we can, it had not been updated, I think, since 2015. And those maps, we've seen the draft map from the county, and we've ordered the large ones and smaller ones, and then we get a digital one, so if someone walks in, we can print one. And that's especially with changes like medical marijuana, there were a lot of, not a lot, but there were several outdated zoning marks, and it's time to get that done, and she did a great job.
Great. This is a great example of something that not only staff uses every day, the township boards, our other appointed commissions and boards, but also the public have access to, and ensuring they have accurate and up-to-date information is crucial to our operation. So the agreement is put in front of you. It is more of a minor update in the larger housekeeping push that staff and the township board has been prioritizing since I started.
Well, I'd like to move to authorize the township clerk to sign the updated meeting code professional service contract and authorize the township staff to work with meeting code on the next code of ordinances supplement.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. The next thing on our agenda item is the September 2019 budget amendment for AMR ambulance service. I understand that amount is in our budget, but it's the transfer of the balance to another place in the budget.
Correct. Yeah, if I can, this is relatively minor in the grand scheme of budget amendments. If you look at the middle paragraph in the staff memo, so when the 2019-2020 budget was originally adopted, it did not include any expenses in the ambulance fund. That was corrected at last month at the August Township Board meeting, but because we were not at the point to move on the AMR contract yet, that was put into that fund's fund balance. At this point, we are looking to move that to the expense to actually be able to pay for the agreement, to have the authorization, have the appropriation to pay for the agreement once it's signed. The only other note I'll make is the amount that is being requested to be moved is less than the total amount at this point we expect to bring in as revenue. That difference would remain in the fund balance. Also understand this is still budgeting at this point, as it is a special assessment district where this revenue comes from. It's a budget number, it is not an exact determination.
I'd like to move to approve the requested September 2019 budget amendments as submitted.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the financial policy handbook. I think what we're looking for here is to distribute this as information, just as we did with the personnel policy last
Okay.
time, and provide feedback or other information to the staff, so we can have it placed on the October meeting agenda. Any questions?
I do have a question. Can we, I do feel this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Can we consult with a financial consultant, a professional outside, or is that customary, or is that generally not done? To get a professional opinion?
On investment policy?
Yes.
Oh, just that?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
You hit the whole thing.
So,
This
so
is-
if I can, briefly, in the development, in staff development of the financial policy handbook, we use the updated personnel policy handbook as a guide. For a number of reasons, but largely for transparency, usability, clarity. The financial handbook policy is broken up into the financial policy handbook is broken up into 4 sections. The first one being a brand new draft purchasing policy. If I can request that the township board spend a majority of their effort reviewing that, that is a brand new policy. We have not had that in place. If I can draw your attention to the chart on page 6, that really summarizes a lot of what this does. This outlines the different thresholds where different purchasing authorities granted. But to get to your specific question, the second part of this is an updated credit card policy. So it is largely the same credit card policy we currently have in place. What this update does is allow for the township manager and other authorized staff to use the township credit card, because the current policy, I believe, was put in place in 2003. And as we know, credit cards have become a lot more, they've become a larger part of day-to-day operations. But in terms of the investment policy and the general fund balance policy, those are both the currently in place policies.
Okay.
They were just added to the handbooks, again, for usability and transparency, so they're all in one place. In terms of reviewing those policies, that is a goal of staff, and it's directed by the board. We can do that within a certain time frame, but I'd just like to clarify that at this point, the investment policy and the general fund balance policy have not been changed at all. They are verbatim to the currently adopted policies.
And the investment policy itself was presented in one of our second or third meetings, just to get everyone on board to understand it was there.
Okay. And the purchasing policy, that part of it, I did focus on. It looks great.
I wanted to thank you for the different levels. It's very sensible. That's great. Do you want other comments now, or?
If you have them.
All right. Yeah, on the credit card policy, I want to address, I don't know how this should be worded, but there's a limit of $500. And that is problematic. For example, we pay our membership in the MTA on credit card, and that's $5,000.
Which page are you on, John?
I'm sorry, page 10. And there's probably been, I know of some cases where staff travel was certainly more than $500. So is that do we need languages? I want clarification on that.
Sure. If I can clarify as it's written, you have the 3 different circumstances where it's appropriate.
Right.
So for your first one with MTA, I think that would fall under other situations as deemed appropriate by the purchasing agent. And your traveling and meals, I think, would fall under that second bullet point.
So the $500 only applies to supplies, materials, or capital outlay.
That's general caps. And again, if there is a situation where we would need to go over that, it would just need to go through the purchasing agent, which is the township manager. So my understanding of your questions is they are currently covered under the policy. If the township board thinks otherwise, we can look to clarify that or rephrase it. if that's not clear. These policies do give us a little more flexibility in terms of other situations as deemed appropriate by the purchasing agent. That's not as true when it comes to the purchasing policy because that has specific thresholds. The other thing I would say is for the township board in their review to consider if they feel those thresholds are appropriate. Again, this is a brand new policy, so this is what was developed when using comparable communities and other communities in the area to develop this policy, but since it is a new policy, the township board has every right to determine what thresholds they deem appropriate for the manager to be able to act under those different procedures.
The purchasing policy looks spot on to me. I can't find anything that I would take exception to. Would it be helpful for us to approve that portion today and leave the rest up for, it's a work in progress, where it's a draft, we will come back at the next meeting, give you, feedback on an individual basis and deliberate again at the next meeting?
That is an option. I would almost encourage the township board to stick to wait until the next meeting.
Okay. I just didn't know if that ties your hands since the purchasing policy is, you know.
Sure, and that is a great point. I think we've gotten through the last 2 months without one by acting cautiously. I would rather lead to the conservative side and give legal counsel a chance to review it, get a chance to have the township board spend some more time reviewing it, make sure they are fully comfortable with all of it, and then bring it back at the next meeting. I appreciate that concern, and that is the reason why this has been so high on staff's priority list, but I would like to make sure that you all are fully bought in and are fully comfortable with this, including being able to have legal counsel review that, so staff can share that it's been vetted by legal counsel. Brenda, I don't know if that makes you any more, when you talk about the investment policy, we do have other professional eyes looking at.
And also, Brenda, I'll remind you that part of the plan, the investment policy and the institution of it are responsibility of the manager and the treasurer. Okay. I give the report, and we've talked, and as we got to the end of the fiscal year, because people come to us all the time with suggestions, our own bank, other banks, financial advisors, and the line was, talk to us in the new fiscal year. And then we had a change in who the manager was, and Griffin and I have been talking about this, and at some point, we will entertain some outside input suggestions, all of which will be brought to the board, obviously. I mean, the bottom line is, we have one investment tool right now, that's CD. That's the only thing we have. Our policy allows all sorts of other alternatives. We will at some point get to the point where the board will be looking at, as you know, we've got a healthy bank account. And we may choose to invest in that. But that's down the road, but it's on the radar, and as Griffin said, this is the same policy that we've been operating under.
And I think that also fits right into, the new administrative role since I've started is looking to implement an annual policy review process. That started obviously with the reworking of the personnel policy in July, and now the drafting and the review of these policies here this past month in August. So moving forward, it's a priority that we are consistently reviewing these policies and amending them, so we're not having situations where we have credit card policies from 2003 or 6.
Investment policy wasn't that old, though.
No, correct. No, correct.
Hey, sorry, since page 15. Yeah. I got to find the title. Not in the minute.
Did you ever aspire to be an editor?
It's in my blood, I guess.
It is.
Got it from my father.
Are there any other questions about that I can try to answer for any of you?
No. So between now and October, we can give you feedback on that. Okay.
Okay, moving